here you are. You have so much potential to bless the lives of your family and to do good and to serve others and to make a difference and to like provide for your family. And you're just sitting here drinking a beer, watching people walk by. Like, what is happening?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Yield Today with Dallin Candland. I'm joined with Nick Sales. And Nick, he does this company called Aevium Films, does videography, does a YouTube channel, does music. He does a lot of different things, and he has quite a journey to share with us. So thanks for being on the show with us, Nick.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so I think something that we're all kind of wondering is, it's easy to look at somebody and think like, I can never do that, or, that's just not in the cards for me, or different things. Have you, I guess, struggled with any inadequacy or different thoughts, I guess, with getting to where you are, or like thoughts of just that you're not good enough to fit in that role, I guess, that you want to be?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we all feel that, and I've definitely felt that several times. And to be honest, I think that I still feel it every once in a while. I still feel like I'm not good enough. And I think that as humans, we just naturally tend to compare ourselves to other people who are better than us in a certain field or aspect. And I heard a quote once, and it really changed my perspective on it. It said, "The only person that you should compare yourself to is who you were yesterday." And I think that's so true, because the people that I compare myself to, I mean, they're great and they're amazing, but really the only person I should be comparing myself to is who I was yesterday. And if I'm a little bit better today than what I was yesterday, that's the only thing that matters. I guess that's the only thing that should matter to me, because really that's the only thing that matters to God. And so it's like, I don't think anything else matters than that. So yeah, I've had definitely feelings of inadequacy. And I remember, especially with like shooting videos and shooting big music videos for huge YouTube channels. I remember, for example, this one music video that I shot, it was for the One Voice Children's Choir, which they have just over 2 million subscribers right now. But this was the first video that I was going to shoot with them, and I was super nervous. And I show up to the location, and they had like over 100 kids, and then all the parents of the kids, and I was in charge. They were basically just like, "All right, Nick, take it away. Here you go." And I knew a little bit about film and videography and stuff, but really when it came down to it, I kind of had no idea what I was doing. So there's this phrase, it's called "fake it till you make it." And that's kind of just what I did in that situation, where I kind of was just like, all right. And I guess I just acted to be confident. I pretended to be confident. I acted with that confidence. And the shoot actually turned out to be really great. And now I think it has over 80 million views on YouTube now. And the choir has come back to hire me to shoot a lot of other videos. And I've shot probably 15 or so videos with that choir now. And now when I work with them, I still get nervous and everything, but I definitely feel a lot more confident. And I think that sometimes that's how things go in life, is you just have to take that step. You have to do something that makes you feel uncomfortable, and you have to kind of fake it till you make it. But if you go through those steps and go through that process, then eventually I think you can have the confidence to where you'll feel a little bit more comfortable in those situations.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what you said there. Just, I thought of a lot of different things as you were sharing all that stuff. But one thing I thought of was like how the ideas in the Bible with Moses, they're going to cross the Red Sea, and the Lord didn't tell Moses, to go until they were already at the Red Sea. He wasn't like, all right, you're going to get to the Red Sea and then you're going to go. They're at the Red Sea. He's like, all right, well, what do we do now? He's like, well, tell them to go forward. And then he puts up the staff and then crosses it. And that takes an immense amount of faith. And this isn't necessarily in the scriptures, but the thought of going forward when your feet are wet. Moses' feet, I like to imagine they were wet because he walked forward into it and was in that opportunity. So it was a little bit more difficult for him to retreat. And for him, he had, people behind him chasing him and stuff. But
right.
But yeah, I really like that story you shared though. So I guess let's dig a little bit back into your earlier life. So how was middle school, elementary school for you overall? Because you grew up in Utah, right?
I did. Yeah, I grew up. I'm from Spanish Fork. And growing up, it was, I feel like I had a great childhood. I think that the thing that set me apart from most other kids was, I guess, looking back now, seeing how I've been able to run this successful video production company, is my parents were always very supportive of me and of my siblings, and really whatever we would be passionate about, they supported us in it, whether it was music or sports or film or video or photography. They were very passionate about supporting us. And so from a young age, I um, grabbed my parents' camcorder and I would go out in the streets with my friends and we would make movies. And we would pretend that we were spies, and we would pretend that we were superheroes, and we would write scripts and have plot twists and do special effects with explosions and fireballs and super speed. And it was an absolute blast, I absolutely loved it. But my parents saw that I had this passion for filmmaking, and so they invested in buying us this computer. They bought us this pretty nice computer at the time, and my dad, he called it the creation station. And everything that we did at that computer, it was to create, whether it was video editing or editing photos or recording music. My dad is a sound engineer, so we also have a recording studio at our house. And so he taught me how to record music and work on all those programs and everything. But I just think that having those supportive parents that were able to support me in whatever I was passionate about really kind of set me apart from the other kids, and made it so that in high school, I already knew how to edit videos. And so I took like a TV broadcasting class. And in a lot of things, I knew more than the teacher knew with a lot of subjects. And the kids in the class would always come to me to help me, or to have me help them edit their projects or edit their videos. And so that was really the thing that I think was that I'm most grateful for looking back now, is seeing how supportive my parents were, and how they were able to support my passions. And they made it to where I was always kind of one step ahead of everyone else. And I think that that really gave me the upper hand when I was, applying for jobs, and it just kind of put me one step ahead of everyone else. And so I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. They were able to, fuel the passion and help you keep going. So you were able to have a lot of, private victories. So when you got to high school, you already had this confidence in doing these things, and you probably already were able to be, a little silly and have some fun with it too, so you didn't have to worry about that aspect maybe of making a fool of yourself, because you already did, I guess.
Yeah.
That's cool though. That's sweet. Well, how about like when you were planning to leave on your mission? So I found your channel from, your If You Could Hide a Collab video. So I found it from that, and I absolutely loved it. And I know you did some music before that. And so your dad was a sound engineer. So like all these different passions and different things, like how did it all come together? Did you just start doing music videos middle of high school, or you just started singing?
Yeah, so I guess the full story of where I was to where I am now is, like I said, I made all those cheesy videos when I was a kid. And then in high school, I really got into music, and I got into songwriting and recording. And since my dad has a recording studio, he taught me how to use all that software. And so I started recording songs that I had written, and I would put them up on iTunes. And since I knew how to make videos, I would just make these cheesy little music videos for my songs. And they were terrible. Looking back at them now, just they were absolutely terrible. But they were so much fun. They were an absolute blast, and I loved making them. And so I had a lot of other friends who were also musicians, and they're like, "Oh, your videos are so cool. You should shoot a music video for me." And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be so fun." And so I would shoot music videos for my friends. And so I did that all through high school, all through my first year of college. And then when I left on my mission, I was doing that. And then once I got back from my mission, I felt like I should just continue doing that and to get a little bit more into video. So I bought a beginner entry-level DSLR camera, and I kept recording music, and I kept making these cheesy little music videos. And I got a job at BYU TV as an editor for the Spanish channel. And that was kind of the job that made it so that I was able to edit really quickly and efficiently. It taught me everything about Premiere Pro, the editing program that I use, and I got really fast and really good at it. And then after working with them for a few months, my favorite YouTube channel, they're called Devin Supertramp, they posted on Facebook, and they were like, "Hey, we're looking for someone to join our team as a filmmaker full time." And so if you're interested, send in a video that you've made and we'll choose someone in 24 hours. And I was like, oh, this is my dream opportunity. Like, this is my dream job. I was such a fanboy of this channel. I've watched all of their videos and I was like, this would be amazing. So I sent in a video that I had made and it honestly wasn't very good. You know, I was right here, super low, and they were way up here, way above me. So I was like, well, I don't think I'm going to get anything from it, but we'll see. I'll just send in a video. 3 days went by and I didn't hear anything from them. So I was like, well, you know, I didn't get it, but wasn't really expecting to. And then after 3 days, they emailed me back and they're like, hey man, sorry it took us so long to get back to you. We got over 200 submissions. And so we've just been watching videos like crazy for the past 3 days, but we watched your video. We love it. And we want you to come in and talk to us and see what you can do. And I was like, what? This is crazy. So I went in and talked to them and they're like, yeah, so we've narrowed it down to you and 4 other guys for the job. So what we're going to do now is we're going to each give you a project to edit that we filmed in New Zealand. They had just gotten back from a trip to New Zealand where they filmed 14 videos in 14 days. So they had all this footage. They're like, we're each going to give you a project to edit, and whoever can get it back to us the fastest and whoever can do the best job will get the job. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, I have a shot at this. This is insane. So I took the footage, ran back home, and I just spent the whole rest of the day just editing along, doing it as quickly as I could. And I pulled an all-nighter that night. I didn't even focus on school or dating or friends or relationships or anything. I was just like, I have to focus on this. So I spent an all-nighter working on it, and I finally got it back to them at like 4 in the morning the next day. And so they all woke up the next morning. They saw that I'd already sent in my video. And over the next few days, all the other guys sent in their videos. And so then they got back to me and they're like, well, Nick, not only did you get it back to us the fastest, but we also feel like you did the best job. So if you want it, the job is yours. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I cannot believe it. I was on cloud 9. And so from there, I was like, well, wait a second. I don't know what to do because I'm still in college, but this is my dream job that I just got offered. What do I do? So I went and talked to my academic advisor and I explained to him the situation and he sat me down and I told him about this job and how awesome it was and how I was going to be traveling the world and making cool videos each week. And finally, after telling him everything, he was like, you know what? You should drop out and pursue this job. And I was like, what? Are you even allowed to tell me this? And he's like, yeah, honestly, a lot of the reason why you come to school is to learn what you need to learn to get a full-time job. But if you already have a full-time job offer, why wouldn't you take it? He's like, and to be honest, it sounds like a pretty sweet job as well. So I was like, all right. So to my parents' dismay, they weren't super supportive of it at first, but dropped out of college and I started working with Devin Supertramp for a year. And in that year, I learned how to film with the big cinema cameras, the red cameras. I learned how to fly drones and edit and color grade and work with big brands and do sound design, and really taught me everything that I needed to know. Because up until that point, my dream was to have my own recording studio because that's what my dad does. And when I was in high school and stuff, I'd kind of thought about getting into filmmaking as a career, but everyone that I had talked to about it always told me like, no, you don't want to get into filmmaking because if you do, you're going to have to move to Hollywood and then compromise all your standards and work on all these sketchy films, and they don't pay you very well, and you'll never get to see your family because you have these crazy 12-hour shoot days, and you basically have to start off as a production assistant who brings coffee to the director and kind of work your way up the ladder. And then in 20 years, if you're lucky, you'll get like a decent job, but even then you'll have to compromise all your standards. And I was just like, oh, I don't want to do that. So I never really saw filmmaking as an option. My dream was to have my own recording studio because that's what was the most plausible for me. But then it wasn't until working with Devin for a year that I realized, I was like, oh my goodness, I don't have to work for Hollywood. I don't even have to work for this company. I can have my own production company where I can have my own clients and set my own rates and be my own boss and own my own equipment and create my own schedule. And if I want to take a week off and go to Hawaii, I can. And so I worked with him for a year. And then after a year, I felt like I needed to leave and set up my own production company. And so I did. And that was just over 4 years ago. And now I've been doing this for that long and just absolutely love it. And it's just kind of interesting because I feel like I had a plan for my life. And then God was like, that's cute, but check this out. And he kind of like took me down this other path that I honestly did not even know existed at the time. So I think it's really interesting how God does that with us, where we think that we have a plan for our life, but he has a bigger perspective. He can see infinitely into the future. And so he can see things that we can't see. And he saw a path that was better for me that I didn't even know existed. And so that's the story. And now here I am, and I absolutely love my job. I love what I do, and I love the freedom and the flexibility that it gives me. And I feel like I get to create a lot of positive and inspiring content that hopefully is helping a lot of people. So I love it.
Yeah, you said a lot there, for sure. I really love what you said about how, different opportunities that you wouldn't even, had thought about, but nonetheless, you're being prepared for them. I think that's super amazing. I wanted to go back to your mission experience a little bit. I've heard some of the stories about like monkeys and all these other different things, but I guess were there any times where, you had these kind of moments where you felt like, well, I'm sure you did, like where you knew God was guiding you and helping you out with waking up, or with, doing these little things that you needed to do that might have been hard? Because I knew you went to Columbia and you had to learn a different language, and all
Yeah.
that stuff sounds really difficult. I didn't have to learn a different language.
Yeah. Yeah. It was hard. I mean, it was probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done, but also looking back on it now, it was one of the best experiences of my life. And when I look back on it, when I think about it, I think that was one of the happiest times of my life. And so it's interesting because I've had this thought lately that I think that a lot of times we think that happiness means having a life without trial, or a life that is just comfortable, or a life without any kind of crazy thing going on. When in reality, for me, the happiest moment I've ever had in my life, or one of the happiest I've ever been, was when I was going through one of the hardest things that I've ever gone through, which was my mission. And so I think that happiness doesn't come from looking for happiness. Happiness comes when we look for purpose. And because as a missionary, I had a purpose, and that purpose was just like embedded into every fiber of my being. And the purpose of serving others and helping them and teaching them about the restored gospel of Jesus Christ, that purpose just filled me so much, and it was so fulfilling, and it made me so happy that even though it was a really hard time, I still felt very fulfilled and happy going through it. And of course, I definitely felt God's help. And just looking back, how I was able to wake up at 6:30 every morning. I mean, even just that in itself, I look back, I'm like, wow, I don't know how I was able to do that. That was crazy, because I mean, even now, like waking up earlier than 7:30 a.m., it kills me. And so I'm just like, man, I definitely had God's help doing things like that. And learning another language and being away from my family and not dating, not watching movies. It was tough. It was really hard. But yeah, I definitely felt God's hand in my life, and I felt like He was there strengthening me, supporting me, and helping me through it. So
Yeah. I just know really strongly that there's lots of inspiration you can get from those little moments, those little things that happen. Can you think of any times from your mission, like any I guess moments that seemed really small, but you think about them often?
moments of inspiration.
It could be a moment of inspiration. I was kind of thinking more like a moment of simple gratitude,
Mm.
I guess.
Yeah, I guess just, I mean, being in a third world country away from your family definitely does make you grateful in itself, because you see these people who are just so humble. They really have nothing, they don't have freshly cut grass. They don't even have carpet. A lot of them don't have ovens. And so it really makes you grateful for the things that you have. And, for me, a big one was just going 2 years without being with my family. Gosh, man, I cannot explain the love that I developed from my family being away from them for so long, because I feel like a lot of times we don't realize how grateful we are for something until it's taken away from us, or until we have to go without it for a while. So I just definitely remember feeling a lot of gratitude for my family, and then just other simple things like carpet and air conditioning and stuff like that.
Did you guys have hot showers or?
So half of my mission was in Bogota, which was the capital, and that was a more developed city. So there we did have hot showers, but everywhere else it was so hot there that they didn't have hot showers. But I don't think you would even have wanted to have a hot shower because it was so hot anyways. So yeah, it was cold showers, but they were nice and refreshing. It actually felt pretty nice. So
I take mostly cold showers now, except on Sundays. So that's kind
yeah.
of what I was asking. That's interesting, though. It is amazing, like what you come to value when you don't see it as much. You know, like my mom used to make me bagels with toast, you know, for in high school, and on the mission you don't get that.
Right.
You know, you have to make do with what you have, and sometimes your companion makes you breakfast or maybe he doesn't. So
Yeah.
that's cool. Well, have there been any people that have kind of taken you under your wing, Nick, to help you get to where you are, and what are some of the things they've taught you?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, probably the first one that comes to mind is just my dad. I mean, he just took so much time out of his schedule when I was growing up to teach me these skills of how to edit videos and how to work with music and edit and produce music in these different programs. So definitely grateful for him. But then recently in later years, I've definitely had a lot of mentors as far as videography goes that have kind of taken me under their wing and have taught me a lot of things. Ones that come to mind are, of course, Devin Supertramp, you know, working with him. He's an absolute legend in the videography world, and working with him for a full year, I was able to just learn a lot about his style and how he does things, and his creative vision. But other than that, also Parker Walbeck, he was another guy who worked with us on Team Supertramp. And then he left after about 6 months and started his own production company. And then when I left, I connected with him again and we started working on a lot of projects together. And then he started this online course called Full-Time Filmmaker that I worked with for a few months, and just learned so much from him as well about marketing an online course and doing Facebook ads, and then just other stuff about videography and lighting and editing and color grading and everything. So yeah, I would say in most recent years, I would say Parker Walbeck has been one of my biggest mentors and inspirations and helping me to get to where I am today.
Gotcha. And then how about with public speaking? Because I know you've done some public speaking stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah, so with that, that's kind of a funny story how it all came to be. I have a buddy, his name's Clint Pulver, and he is an incredible public speaker. I would say he's one of the best in the world right now. He gets hired to speak for these massive conferences and these big companies. And so I was friends with him on Facebook, and one day I reached out to him on Facebook just because I was just kind of curious to hear his story and to hear how he got into public speaking. Not necessarily because I wanted to get into it, but just because I liked his work ethic. I liked what the message that he was sharing, and I wanted to surround myself with like-minded people and people who were doing good in the world. So I took him out to lunch one day and just to hear his story, and he told me his whole story of how he got into public speaking and what he's been able to do with it. And at the end, I was just like, man, that's so cool. That's so cool that you get to speak to people and be inspiring and change their lives. And he was like, yeah, well, you could do it too, Nick. And I was like, what do you mean? I don't have like the story that most public speakers have. You know, I've never been suicidal. I've never had a drug addiction. I haven't like lost a leg. I don't have like the story that a lot of public speakers have. And he's like, no, you totally do. He's like, Nick, when I watch your videos, I am so inspired by them. They're so beautiful. They inspire me to go out and see the world and explore and adventure and to love God more and to serve others. And so he's like, you've worked with a lot of big social media influencers and YouTubers and Instagrammers. And so what you could totally do is when I go to high schools, I realize that there's a huge issue that they have there is that a lot of kids don't know how to handle social media, and social media is absolutely destroying their lives. So what you could do, Nick, is you could go to these high schools and you can show them one of your inspiring videos, and then you can come out and you can be like, what's up guys? My name is Nick Sales. I've worked with this big YouTuber and this big influencer, and I have hundreds of millions of views, but let me tell you, none of that matters. Let me tell you what actually does. And you can talk to them about focusing less on how many likes they're trying to get on social media and focusing more on building a legacy and developing your skills and talents and attributes to actually do good in the world and make a difference. And as he was talking about this, just like the gear started turning in my head, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're totally right. I could talk about this for hours because I have worked with a lot of social media influencers who use social media to do a lot of good and to benefit a lot of people. But I've also seen it absolutely destroy people." And so Clint, he has kind of been my mentor, so to say, in the public speaking world, where he helped me to create my keynote speech and helped me to build a website and even helped me to get some clients. And so super grateful to him because I would have had no idea how to do it if it weren't for his help. So he's been a great part in helping me to get to where I'm at now with that.
Wow. Well, Clint, the hero of the story, hero of the hour a little bit. That's amazing. He pretty much like wrote the hook right there. Like I was hooked in right there for sure.
Yeah.
Like, wow. None of that matters. That's super powerful. That's just amazing. How have you kind of seen, I guess, social media change over time, and where do you think it's going?
Social media, I have a love-hate relationship with it. I feel like a lot of it is so good, and obviously I love it because it's what I do for my job. But I've also just seen so much sadness and destruction come from it. And I think a lot of it, what it comes down to is when parents hand their kids a smartphone, it's kind of like them handing their kids a loaded gun without teaching them how to use it, because there's just so many terrible things on there that if you know how to handle it, I feel like social media could be a great tool that could really bless and benefit and inspire a lot of people. But if you don't know how to handle it, I see all the time little girls or teenage girls who are comparing themselves to others and just have a lot of self-image issues, and teenage boys who get a smartphone and get social media and then instantly get sucked into pornography. And it's just like it's so sad to see that like they're given these tools that have unlimited information and access to everything in the world, but they're not taught, they're not trained how to use this, and their brains haven't developed to the point where they can handle something like that. And so unless they know how to handle it well, it just has such a potential to destroy them. So I think if used well, social media is a great tool, and I love it, and I see a lot of potential in it. And especially like with missionary work, for example, like I've worked a lot with the missionaries, and I've done a lot of videos with the missionaries where we've used social media to spread the message of what the missionaries are trying to share. And one of the videos that I did with the missionaries, it got over 1 million views. And a lot of people have, commented saying like, man, I'm an atheist, but I felt something when I was watching this video. Or, wow, I didn't realize that the missionaries teach this way. Or I didn't realize that they're so service oriented, or that they leave their families for 2 years and they pay out of their own pockets to pay for their missions, and then they're not paid. And they really just are people who are normal and have normal lives, and and just want to help us, So I think that there's pros and cons with social media. It's a great tool for doing good, but I also feel like with every good thing, the devil always tries to stick his hand in it and tries to warp it and manipulate it into turning it into something bad. So,
Yeah, well, I really like I'm appreciative of everything you shared. It kind of brought me back to a thought I had before we started this interview about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and Daniel. So in that biblical time, so Daniel and three other people, well there was more, but these young teenagers, were taken from their homes and brought to this king's palace, and they were taught to be the wise men, and they pretty much had free reign. They could do whatever, but they had Daniel stuck to his guns, and some of the others did, and so they were protected. They were able to make the most of it and able to be examples and save the lives of some of the people that were going through difficult times later on, where there was idolatry and different things. And so, yeah, I think it's can be really, really amazing, but again, it can also destroy opportunities instead of create them, and everything like that. So yeah, thank you.
yeah.
Well, what would you say is your message to the world, Nick?
That's a great question. I have asked this question to a lot of different people. I love asking people the question of, if you could give a speech to the world, or if you could just talk to the world for an hour about any topic, what would it be? And I've thought a lot about that question, but I think that for me, my message to the world is helping people to understand our potential and to understand that we are children of God, but more than that, understanding what that actually means. And I think that the best way to explain that, it comes from a story that my dad would always tell me when I was a kid. And this is one of my favorite stories, and I love it so much, and I think about it all the time. And in the story, it goes like this. It says, there was once a farmer who he was walking along a path by his farm one day, and he looked up on the path, and up ahead of him, he saw this little baby bird. And the farmer went up, and he realized that it wasn't just any baby bird, it was a little baby eagle. And so the farmer picked it up and looked around and didn't see the mom anywhere. And he's like, well, I can't just leave him here. He's a little baby eagle. And so he's like, well, I don't know how to raise eagles, but I do know how to raise chickens. So he decided to take the baby eagle back to his farm, and he put him in with the chickens in the chicken coop. And a few months went by, and one day the farmer was walking out by the chicken coop, and he looked in and he saw that the eagle was now fully grown. But he saw the craziest thing. He realized that the eagle thought that he was a chicken. He walked like the chickens and he ate like the chickens. And the farmer thought, oh my goodness, this eagle thinks that he's a chicken. What are we going to do? So he got an idea, and he decided to pick up the eagle, put him in his truck, and he drove to a nearby cliff, got out, took the eagle out, went to the edge of the cliff, and just threw him off.
Oh no.
And the eagle, started to freak out, was falling towards its death, but then out of pure instinct, he kind of ruffled his feathers, spread his wings, and realized that he could fly. And from that day forward, the eagle was always flying up above the other chickens. So what's the moral of that story? We live in a world full of chickens, so to say. We live in a world where people just kind of go through the motions. They wake up, they go to work, they come home, they aimlessly scroll through social media, they flip through the channels on their TV, and they just kind of wither away as the years go by without realizing their true potential. The best example that I've seen of this is on my mission in Colombia. The thing that bugged me the most, more than anything that I saw there, is I would be walking down the streets and I would see fathers, dads, who would work maybe 2 or 3 hours a day, and then they would come home, they'd sit on their porch, they'd take their shirt off, they'd sit on their porch, pop open a beer, and just drink a beer and watch people walk by on the streets. And they would spend hours every day just sitting on their porch, laid back, watching people walk by, not doing anything with their lives. And Dallin, it drove me crazy.
I couldn't imagine that.
I was like, what is happening? What are you doing with your life? I'm like, here you are. You have so much potential to bless the lives of your family and to do good and to serve others and to make a difference and to like provide for your family. And you're just sitting here drinking a beer, watching people walk by. Like, what is happening? And so that was like the biggest example of living a chicken lifestyle, is because that was just the culture there in Colombia. Everybody kind of did it. So everyone kind of just like accepted that culture, and all the dads kind of grew up and just lived and adapted to that lifestyle. And it drove me crazy, because what we teach in the gospel is that we're children of God. In fact, it's probably one of the first things that we're taught in the gospel ever since being in primary at a very young age. And as a missionary, it's interesting because that's the very first principle that we teach in lesson 1, is that we are children of a loving Heavenly Father. But I think that a lot of people don't understand what that means. Because if you were to truly understand that you are a child of God, it changes you. It makes you think about things differently. It makes you treat others differently, and it makes you treat yourself differently. Because how could you ever be disrespectful or hateful or yell at or be angry with someone knowing that they are your brother or sister? How could you truly, realizing that you are a child of God, how could you, because when you realize that you're a child of God, you realize that just as any child can grow up to become like their parents, you realize that you can grow up to become like God. And you have this incredible potential that you are literally a God in embryo. And so how could you act differently knowing your potential, knowing that you have such a potential to do good and to change lives and to make a difference in the world? So that's the message that I would share, is the message of that we are children of God, and knowing that changes us. It makes it so that we treat others differently. It makes it so that we treat ourselves differently. And I think that just like remembering what it truly means to be a child of God, I think that if the world were to truly understand what it means to be a child of God, I think all wars would end. I think that there wouldn't be as much bickering and political debates and fighting. I think that people would be a lot more loving and respectful for each other. I think that people would be a lot more obedient to the commandments. I think that people would treat themselves differently and treat others differently. There's just so many things that could happen when we come to that realization that we truly are children of God.
Yeah, there's a lot of scriptures that, say different things that, personally have touched my heart a lot. Like Acts 15:27-29 talks about how, if we feel after him, we will find out he's not very far from any of us. And I really like the eagle story you shared, because it made me think of Isaiah 40:31, about they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they'll walk and not faint. So that's some very powerful stuff you shared, and especially that story, man. Wow, that was great. Just the storytelling right there. I really like that. So thank you for doing that for us. I think we all enjoyed that.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the things you've learned from some of your siblings, like growing up in your specific family? You've talked about your dad, and I think we've really gotten a better idea of him a little bit, but what about some of your other siblings, if you'd be okay with that, or other family members?
Yeah, so I have two sisters and I have a little brother. I have an older sister who's married. She lives in Texas right now and she's a photographer. I have a younger sister who's also married and she lives in Santa Quin, Utah. And then a little brother who is also married and he lives in Harriman, Utah. And growing up, I would say that my older sister, she is the most loving, caring person in the world. She's just so chill and understanding, would never ever get angry or raise her voice or try to like fight. And just like seeing her now as a mother, she's just like the most loving mother. So that's something that I've learned a lot from her, is just to love others and to not judge them and to just care for them. My little sister, she's a little bit more fiery. She's a little bit more opinionated, but something that I've realized from her lately is the importance of communication. She's really good. She's obsessed with personality tests. Um, in The most important one to her is the Enneagram test. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but
I don't think so.
she loves this Enneagram test. She has an Instagram account that has like 25,000 followers. And so she really loves diving deep and getting to know a person and understanding why they are the way that they are and what makes them that way. And so lately, she's just been really open and communicative about like helping me to understand why I do a lot of the things that I do and why I act the way that I act. And just communicating with her and being open with her has really showed me the importance that it's important to communicate in any kind of relationship that you have, whether that's with your family member or in dating or with your spouse. And not just having open communication, but having like good communication and a lot of communication to where you could basically read the mind of the person that you're communicating with. So that's been something that she's taught me. And then I have a little brother, and he has just kind of taught me to let go and to love life and to enjoy life. And he's just like the happiest kid all the time. He's not a kid, he's 21, but he's just always happy and cheerful. And he's just kind of taught me that like, it doesn't matter what situation you're in, even if you're going through something hard, you can still enjoy it and you can still live the best life that you can. So yeah, I've definitely learned a lot of great lessons from all my siblings.
Yeah, it's such a blessing, and it's so amazing to learn those things from them, especially as they grow up and as they kind of blossom and become their own people and stuff. So that's sweet. Well, what is your like quick advice for somebody that wants to maybe start an Instagram or start a YouTube channel and to make a difference with it from day one?
To make a difference from it, that's a tricky question. You know, there's a lot of risk that comes from it. I mean, I guess it's kind of different starting an Instagram channel or a YouTube channel, because really anyone can do that. But I would say that the best advice that I could give them is you have to take that first step. And let me tell you now, your first Instagram post and your first YouTube video, they're not going to be good. In fact, they're probably going to be terrible. The lighting will be off, the camera will be shaky, everything will be out of focus. You're not going to be like, it's going to be bad. But you have to take that first step, because you have to put in the 10,000 hours. You know, like when you are becoming an expert in anything, you have to put in the time and the work. And so a lot of times I see people who are wanting to pursue their passions, who are wanting to start a YouTube channel or wanting to do this thing that will make a difference, but they're scared because they don't feel ready yet. And they're like, oh, I don't have the gear that I want. I don't have the camera that I want yet. I don't feel prepared or anything. When you think about it, it's like, that's how life is. I mean, we're really never prepared for anything. When you have a baby, you're not prepared to be a parent. You're just kind of thrown into it. And so it's the same way with anything. You just have to start. You have to take that first step. And then with every picture you take, with every video you make, it'll always get better and better and better, and you'll learn step by step. But you just have to take that first step, realizing that it's probably going to be bad. It's probably going to be terrible, but you're going to learn from it and you're going to grow from it and you're going to be better and better with it. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome advice. And it goes along with anything. Like if you're starting a job, day one, you're going to probably be pretty bad at it. For me on my mission, I feel like I prepared pretty well for it and stuff. But even still, I would fumble over my words, or I would be a little awkward, or something like that. But by the end, you keep trying, you keep praying, you keep learning these different things. By the end, you surprise yourself. And it's because you started. And you started a YouTube channel, like more about personal finance and life and different things back in, was it March?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say February or March, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you've been able to grow that and help that keep going and, inspire some people. But there was a lot of, I really like what Stephen R. Covey talks about in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that there's private victories that precede the public victories, the fake it till you'll make it that you were talking about. But yeah, just starting. Because how are you going to get anywhere if you don't
Right.
start?
Yep.
Sweet. Well, what's kind of coming up for you now? What are you most excited about?
So the things that I'm working on right now, I guess. So for me, my biggest dream and my passion in life is to create content that not only entertains but also inspires. And so I would say financially, for me, my biggest goal is I want to get to the point where I'm financially stable enough to where I can still, work on projects for clients and stuff, but get to the point where I don't have to really worry about paying a mortgage or worrying about bills and stuff. I want to get to the point financially where I can focus the majority of my time working on projects that can be inspiring and that can do good in the world. And so in order to do that, I'm trying to build up a lot of different sources of revenue, hoping that some of them or one of them will take off and will make it so that I just have these sources of revenue just continuously coming in. And so because of that, I have, my production company that is doing well, but I'm also in the process of creating an online course right now that teaches people how to do videography and how to run a successful video production company, and teaches everything about what gear to buy and what camera to get, and teaches all about lighting and editing and how to get clients and how to make cinematic camera movements and all of that. So that's another thing that I'm doing. And then I'm creating a YouTube channel, and I'm actually going to be starting my own podcast up here in the next couple of weeks. Not necessarily to make money, but just because it's something that I think would be fun to talk about weird random stuff with my friends. But I also do a little bit of music on the side. I record some music here and there, and I'm making a little bit of money from like Spotify and iTunes and stuff. And then a little bit of real estate. I bought a house and renting out one of the rooms to a roommate. And so just trying to build up a lot of different streams of revenue so that once they kind of take off, they can get to the point where they can just bring in a consistent revenue every month, and that can pay for my mortgage so that I can focus on the things that I'm most passionate about. So the videos that I love making the most are the videos that talk about either my beliefs, or working with the missionaries and doing videos that can bring others closer to the gospel of Jesus Christ, or even just videos that inspire people to go out and to see the world and to explore and to adventure and to love God more, or to love their neighbor more, or stuff like that. So those are the things that I want to do the most in life right now.
That's super cool. I'm excited to give that podcast a listen. That'll be a fun day when that comes up. But that's awesome. Just how you've been able to, build up those income streams and get those going. That's something I'm kind of trying to work on a little bit too, is have some kind of passive income. Because they say, like, if you can make money while you sleep, that's pretty sweet,
Yep.
That's cool. Well, I guess what have been some of the projects that have been the most meaningful to you, that have like told the best story? Like there's a lot of One Voice Children's Choir music videos that I've watched, and they all tell, different stories behind the scenes.
Oh man, that's a tough question because when it comes down to it, I film about 80 videos a year, and so some people ask me like, what are my favorite videos, or what videos do I love the most, or which ones do I think have made the biggest impacts? And I don't know. There's so many to think of. Um, I mean, there's been a lot of music videos that I've done with the One Voice Children's Choir that have really fulfilled me in that aspect. Also, BYU Vocal Point, I've done a lot of videos for them as well. Did a video of "It Is Well with My Soul" that kind of took off. Did a video of "You Raise Me Up." I did a video of a Hercules cover, "Go the Distance," that we filmed in California. And all of those, man, I feel like all of those just kind of like make me feel something. And music is just so powerful. I feel like music can help you feel things that you can't really feel from anywhere else. And music really can. And when you mix music, a powerful song with a powerful video, I feel like it can just trigger these emotions that you can't really trigger from anything else. So yeah, I would say One Voice Children's Choir, BYU Vocal Point, BYU Noteworthy. We've done some pretty impactful videos with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it makes a lot of sense that things that are kind of more in line with your beliefs and, well, I guess our beliefs, since we're from the same church, but like, all those different things are kind of the ones where you find the most joy in doing them and sharing your talents and in that way. So that's pretty sweet how you're
Thank you.
able to. That's wonderful, honestly, because I didn't realize you did a bunch of missionary videos too. But that's awesome. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I guess let's go back to. So, did you finish college? Like,
No, no, I never did. I did 3 years at BYU, and then I dropped out. And I thought that, I always could go back if I wanted to, but then my career started taking off and I started making good money. And I've never had a client who has ever asked to see my degree. They just want to see what I can do. They want to see what I'm capable of. They want to see the products that I can deliver to them and the production value that I can bring to them. So as much as I would like to go back and get a degree just because I think I would feel fulfilled doing it, I don't know. I don't think I'll ever go back just because, I don't know. It's everybody has a different path. It's not even that I've stopped learning. It's just that instead of going to college, I feel like I've just created my own curriculum. Now,
mhm.
instead of having professors telling me what to read, I read what I feel like could be most beneficial to me, whether that's self-help books or personal development books or the scriptures or listening to podcasts and stuff like this. That's kind of the education that I'm getting now. And it's cool because I can still learn whatever I want to learn, but I'm the one that's creating my own curriculum.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, man. Because I'm like, I still have a couple years left, some semesters left, and there's some classes like accounting. I'm like, no, I don't want to take accounting. It's like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna have to push through it. So
Yeah.
I'm with you there. I was just a little bit unsure of like the timeline there. So who knows? Maybe it'll become even easier to do later on, and then you can just check that box later if you want. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's awesome. Just owning the opportunity. I talked with somebody last week, Willie Blake, and how he was able to talk with Evan Carmichael, pretty big YouTuber, you know, and it's because he kind of took that opportunity, even though he had to sacrifice some things. What are some of your thoughts on sacrificing the good for something better or something way beyond that you can't really see?
Hmm. I heard a quote once on my mission, actually, that has kind of stuck with me ever since. And it said, sacrifice is giving up something good for something better. And in the end, you realize that it wasn't even a sacrifice at all. And so, yeah, I think that in the moment, sacrifice is hard. But in retrospect, once you look back and see where that sacrifice has brought you, you realize, oh my goodness, that wasn't really a sacrifice. That was something that was hard in the moment, but it ended up bringing me greater blessings than I would have gotten than if I wouldn't have done that thing. So,
Yeah, that's a great question for our viewers to ask themselves. Like, where are the sacrifices bringing you? So, like, if you're sacrificing, your dreams right now because you're not doing them, you're not taking that first step. you know, sacrificing a little bit of discomfort or something like that could be, you know, such a blessing down the road.
Yeah.
So
Yep. I agree.
yeah, that's really wonderful. Well, I guess going back to your mission again really fast,
Mhm.
what was the end of it like? Because for every missionary, it's a little different. I had a bike accident that was a little difficult, but we were able to push through, and I learned so much about charity and trusting the Lord those last couple months through pain, through struggle, and everything. But what was your last little bit of your mission like?
It was hard but good. I got bit by a monkey in my last transfer of my mission, so I had to go to the hospital and get 7 rabies shots. Um, my companion and I, there's this. This is a funny story. We were studying one day. We were reading this talk from President Eyring, and in the talk, President Eyring says, "You know, sometimes in my prayers, I'll ask the Lord to just give me trials, and he'll say, you know, Lord, just give me one more mountain to climb." Because, I mean, the reason for that is because he said, I've realized that in my moments, the moments that I've progressed the most and that I've learned the most have been through the hardest trials. So because of that, I ask the Lord for trials so that I can grow and so that I can progress. And so me and my companion, you know, we're little 21-year-old kids just be like, yeah, that sounds awesome. We should try that. And so in our prayers, we started asking the Lord for trials. And boy, let me tell you, did he answer our prayers. Not in the way we expected, but one day my companion woke up and he had these big contagious boils all over his face. And it made it so that we could not even leave the apartment. And I was so confused. I was like, what is going on? Like, yeah, I understand this is a trial, but we can't even leave the apartment now. We can't even go out and be missionaries. How is this supposed to help us? How is this supposed to teach us? But in those few days of being quarantined and being in the home, we learned a lot of things in those days. And maybe it was a sacrifice. Maybe it was just the Lord seeing what we were willing and able to do. But at the end of that transfer, we ended up baptizing just as a golden family who was just like so prepared to receive the gospel. And I don't know, I would like to think, I like telling myself that that wouldn't have happened unless we would have prayed and asked for trials. But I don't know if that's the actual case, but I do know that it was cool. It was cool to ask for trials in that moment. It definitely taught us a lot of things. I don't know if I'm ready to get to the point where I'm ready to do that again and ask for trials again, just because I feel like the Lord will give us trials whether we ask for them or not. So, but yeah, that's something that's one of the greatest lessons that I learned towards the end of my mission.
That's cool. I had a missionary on my mission share this thought that he got from his personal study, that the difference between a trial and a trail to our like greater faith and stuff is if you put like the atonement of Jesus Christ, understanding what Christ did for you before yourself, like before the I, so it becomes TRAIL as
Mm.
a trail. Then a trial is tri-I before putting that before him. I feel like there's a lot of people that they have these similar difficulties and it hardens them. It gives them another reason to throw in the towel or to want to throw in the towel, or resentment or something like that. But you chose to make the best of it.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Sweet. Well, there's been a lot that we've talked about, Nick, but what's something else that you'd like to share with the viewers of Yield today? Just kind of seeing the opportunities that are ahead with love and with faith, and you know, just kind of making the most of each day.
Whew, good question. Let's see. Let me think. Man, I would say that there's always just like a constant thought that's going through my head, some new thought that I'm always thinking of, and just kind of like processing in my brain. Let's try to think of any thoughts of inspiration. Ooh, here's one. Here's a thought that I've had. So I was talking to a friend once, and we were talking about how a lot of times in Utah culture, we live in kind of this perfectionistic society where everyone is trying to be perfect. And so they kind of appear to be perfect when in reality, they're not perfect. And it's kind of discouraging for a lot of people because they go to church and they see that everyone else around them appears to be perfect when in reality they're not. But it's discouraging because they themselves are not perfect. And so they feel discouraged because they feel like they're surrounded by people who are perfect when in reality they're not. And so I think that with that, a lot of times, because we live in this perfectionistic society, we try to make it appear like we ourselves are perfect. But we were talking about this, and my friend said this quote that I really, really liked. Let's see if I can find it here. Okay. The quote says, "If you're trying to appear to be perfect, you're not able to focus on others because you're too busy focusing on making yourself appear to be perfect." And I really like that. It's like if you're trying to be perfect, you're so focused on making yourself appear to be perfect that you can't focus on others. And so I don't know, I personally would like to see a culture of more vulnerability, of openness, of honesty, a culture of realizing that we are all, and it's not even that we're all just like a little bit imperfect. It's like we are vastly imperfect. We are like we're honestly a bunch of hooligans that have no idea what we're doing. And so I think that if we were to just embrace that culture and realize that everybody's struggling with things, everybody has their own things they're going through, it's okay, because when we focus less on ourselves and when we focus more on others, in retrospect, that kind of makes it so that we can be more perfect, because the only way to be perfect is to focus on others. So that's the thought that I want to leave.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. I think just being willing to be humble with things too, because it's super easy to, you know, get lost in your success or something like that, or something you might see and you could be completely missing something else. I just think of this really wonderful quote that there's no success that can compensate for failure in the home,
Right.
so there's a that's a good thought there. But I really like what you said there, because I feel like there's so many people that are scared of being themselves and sharing what they're struggling with so they can get the help they need and whatever that might look like. So well, Nick, thank you so much for being on the show. Where can our listeners find you?
So you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is at Nick Sales Music, or YouTube. I have two YouTube channels. One of them is just Nick Sales, where I go over filmmaking tips, and then I have another YouTube channel that's dedicated to music that's called Nick Sales Music as well. So Instagram or YouTube would be the two places I would say.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for being on the show. And guys, definitely check out his stuff. And if you're interested in music video or pro video making, uh, definitely check out Nick's courses. I've heard good things about them. So
Thanks, Dallin. Thanks for having me.
yeah, thanks, Nick. Take care.
All right. Talk to you later.